Welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, discuss, talk about, review, and everything else to every horror movie on Netflix. As always, I'm Chris, here with Patrick.
Hi, Chris.
And Steven.
Hello, Chris and Patrick.
Hi, Steven.
Good, I'm glad we're giving each other equal time. That's amazing.
We're all greeting each other with equal cordiality.
Yeah. Well,
Chris, I noticed, didn't say hello to either of us. Very rude.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Chris.
I'm glad you're here again.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks
Steven,
for having me.
I'm glad you're here.
I'm flattered to be in your company.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
So we're back to
India again.
Yeah, I mean, we had an amazing experience, and divisive as well, last time with 1920 London.
Yeah, you hated it.
I was going to say, you did not have an amazing experience with 1920
Parts
London.
of it I loved, but I know that around that time, I was getting very targeted ads from Netflix, and this movie, Bhoothnath, came up, and I sent a screenshot to both of you, like, I can't wait till we can talk about this movie. It was like a very... In fact, I don't think the image that was in that ad is even in this movie. We can look it up and see, but it looked like kind of a spooky, witchy ghost movie. And part of that is right.
Yeah, it's certainly spooky.
It's horrifying.
It's a horrifying concept.
This is a haunted house movie of the highest order.
A young family moves into a house. They have a young boy. The young boy starts communicating to the undead. Weird things start happening at school. The father is like an absentee
Hereditary.
father. It's like Hereditary, and then I feel like there's another movie with an absentee father.
Bogus.
I don't know.
I don't know, but whatever movies those are, I was not as unsettled as I was by Bhoothnath.
This is a movie about a young boy whose father has gone off to work on a cruise ship, and he, in his loneliness, develops a relationship with a much older man with what I refer to as coke nails. He's got those long fingernails. He's very sort of
disgusting.
shabbily dressed, disgusting, just horrifying. Like, think like Slimer from Ghostbusters, like as a physical, like, human being.
I mean, one might describe this as a horror of hygiene.
You absolutely could, and I was disturbed that the boy didn't really seem to be threatened by this ghost. That was the horror of this for me.
No, I mean, he looked at those nails and said, let me clip
them for you. Let me clip them because they're too long. You need some help, ghost friend.
The mother, she's lonely. She's having a hard time running the household, and she has to just watch her cute boy lose his mind.
Descend into madness.
A paranormal entity.
A woman who understands hygiene. Who knows how to clip her nails.
And she is a master chef. I mean, she makes a mean sandwich.
Yeah.
I would say,
a mean tiffin.
This movie is about two things. It is about three things. I have three things to say. It is about broken families, ghosts, and sandwiches. Am I wrong?
That's right.
Okay, I thought so.
But presented in such an unnerving package, really.
So are we going to stop with this bullshit?
Let's be clear.
Listeners, you know, we've told you for a long time that if you troll us, we'll troll you back. We've just been trolling you for the last 5 minutes, so hopefully you're going to troll us real fucking hard in retaliation. This is not a fucking scary movie. We've just been fucking around.
We've been trolled by Netflix, I think. This is
it's in the horror section. It's not a horror movie.
This is a children's film. I mean, this movie
it's a family film.
It's a family
film. It is like 90s style family film. Like if they remade this, Robin Williams should have been.
Oh my god, that's so right.
In the 90s.
That'd be great. Imagine Beethoven, but instead of a dog, it's a ghost.
Played by Robin Williams.
Sure.
Yeah, and you've got Bhoothnath, the American remake.
Bhoothnath.
Yep.
Which, so we should say, Booth, Bhooth, means ghost in Hindi.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that the spelling is correct because nobody says Bhoothnath. They say Bhoothnath, and in the subtitles, there's no H, no second H in it.
Well, I mean, in Hindi, it wouldn't be spelled in the English alphabet anyway.
Wait.
So I mean, it's all a matter of interpretation.
Sure, but the movie is conflicted between the spelling of the title and the way they use that term in the film itself. This is a movie about a family is moving into a new house. A young boy's father is an engineer on a cruise ship, and so he's gone all the time. It's like being a pilot, you know. He's off on long flights, and the company pays for them to move into this very exquisite mansion, which turns out to be haunted.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the ostensible horrorness of this movie comes in literally the first 5 minutes. I think someone at Netflix watched the first 5 minutes and was like, yep, put that in the horror section. I mean, because it does play very horror-ish in those first 5 minutes.
Sure.
It's total, a couple is in this house. We never see this couple again. They get attacked by a ghost. It's very...
They make a big pizza, they're about to fuck, and like suddenly things go awry.
Presented very much as traditional horror. And after that, there's almost nothing that registers as horror in this movie.
Agreed. And I would say a huge swath of this movie is pure melodrama. I mean, it kind of reminded me a little bit of like a movie I've mentioned before, like The Innocents, the Jack Clayton movie written by Truman Capote, where it's like there's a ghost involved, but it's not scary. It's more like familial drama.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very much focused on like...
Oh, it's soap. This movie is
as much the location as the characters.
Huge soap opera.
Absolutely. It's like Almodovar made a ghost movie. But Almodovar was like totally stoned and like not doing a good job of holding the reins.
So, I mean, because we were just speaking about language a little bit, and actually probably none of us can lend any real clarity to this issue, but I was so fascinated that the dialogue in this movie is subtitled and is primarily in a foreign language, but there's also some English dialogue. Like
there's a lot of English.
The actors will slip back and forth between what I assume is Hindi and English from time to time. Does anybody know why that would be, or
no idea
how that works?
I mean, other than the obvious that, you know, India was an English colony for so long.
Yeah.
The language, and I noticed it was mostly, with some exceptions, it was mostly sort of like figures of speech or expressions or like interjections that were in English. So I don't know if it's come up like that.
I've seen this in other foreign language films. Like I think of like Certified Copy, where there's a lot of, I think a French film where there's a lot of like English dialogue dropped in. Like when people get like really mad, they talk in English instead of like continuing to talk in French or Italian or what the language might be. This movie is like dazzling how quickly people go back and forth between the two languages. And it's all subtitled.
You probably have that in a society if people are fluent in two languages. What's interesting to me is that it's not in 1920 London. But
well, that
India's
was more of
country.
I mean, I think that had to do a lot with like the time period that movie was set in.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, we cannot claim to be experts on this. We should have done some research. I'm curious to know why that is, or if people slip back and forth between Hindi and English. I mean, I probably sound like a huge moron right now to anybody who is actually of Indian descent. So I'm just going to shut the fuck up.
I'm curious. This movie made me curious because I've never seen. I mean, I've for a long time watched a lot of foreign films. I mean, I studied film as an undergraduate, and I've never seen anything quite like this, where the language is so fluid.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here where I don't want to speculate. Obviously, we just come into these movies, these foreign films, with a huge disadvantage. Obviously, since we're watching every horror movie on Netflix, we can't research all the facets of Indian culture and Indian film and Indian language. So we're doing the best we can. And we're going to try not to be too, ethnocentric about it. So
should we get into kind of the basics of the characters and what we're dealing with in this movie here? So there's the little kid, Banku. Who is our hero.
Banku, my son.
Basically, yeah. Steven literally texted me as he was watching this movie and said, Banku, I want a son. Like, this child alone made you wish you had a biological child of your own.
Yeah, he is a precocious but sweet-hearted boy. He's kind of chunky and no, he is. I mean, he's kind of just an adorable little cherubic child.
See, I'm gonna be honest. Banku really grew on me because I hated this fucker at first. I was just
really.
I mean, part of it was the actor's performance at first. I didn't think he was a great child actor, which you can't hold any child actor to too much account for their performance because they're a kid and whatever. But he definitely grew on me a lot as the movie went on. I think some of it was the writing, some of it was the way the character was portrayed, and some of it was, you know, the kid actually turned out to have some range. And especially when he started playing against this actor playing the ghost, Bhoothnath, there was a relationship there that I became emotionally invested in.
Well, we'll talk about the relationship.
Much to my surprise.
There were some things about the relationship that actually quite disturbed me, but we can talk about that later. But I feel like he has range. He just had so much energy, and so he was so feisty. Like, he felt like a real kid in very much the same way as the kid from The Babadook does. Like, I would say that kid definitely gives a better performance because he has better material to work with. But I feel like the kid who plays Banku is, he just comes alive on screen.
Yeah, I mean, feisty. I mean, when I think feisty, I think one of the early scenes in this movie where he goes to his new school for the first time and he's being bullied. And one of my favorite things in this movie is when he and the bully like exchange scowls and the camera slowly zooms in on each of them. And there's this musical cue that repeats 1,000 times, just like the musical cue for Jay in 1920 London, Fear Strikes Again. Great musical cue.
Oh, I wrote down in my notes.
We should drop in this bully musical cue.
I wrote down in my notes.
Here.
Why does Banku get a Carpenter theme?
It's not the same music at all, but the way they shot that reminded me of Kill Bill when the bride sees someone she wants to kill. And they stare each other down. They play music.
Yeah. I want to say something. So we have this opening scene that is very much it's very Blumhousey. We say that a lot in this podcast, but like we get this kind of teenage, you know, dicking around in a abandoned house sort of thing.
And we should say it looks like shit. Like, I mean,
it's so dark you can't tell what's happening.
I'm not super inclined towards the technical details as you guys are, but I was like, wow, this looks like Netflix found this on Vimeo somewhere and just like filmed it off their computer and then put it on Netflix. It looks like garbage.
I thought it looked fine.
Really?
But what struck me is that after that scene,
fine.
Both. What struck me is that after that scene happens, and after we get the opening credits, suddenly we are cast into this very film-like visual. I don't even.
Well, it looked like the whole movie was like scanned off a shitty film print. I thought I saw cigarette burns in the corner.
No, you did.
Times.
You absolutely did, and they were. I will say, my first note that I made in this movie is, are we in the Ouija universe?
Oh, yeah.
The Ouija cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Because there are cigarette burns, but in Ouija, the cigarette burns are always in the same place. It's like the same kind of trick played over and over again.
Ouija, Origin of Evil.
I think this might have actually been shot on film.
Yeah, I think it was.
And it was a weird choice because I immediately thought, like, are we in a 70s commercial right now for this cruise line?
Yeah. I think it was shot on film, but someone fucked up.
Oh, yeah, that shot where, like, there's that weird, slow-mo shot of the ship, and then it speeds up. If
it was shot on film, it was very badly done. Unless they were trying to make it look like an exploitation movie.
It may have been 16 millimeter film, but it was shot on film.
I mean, there's not.
I think it was shot in HD and like they put a filter on it or something. But I could be wrong because the burns and like the little sort of tricks, you know, the little like sort of like specks and everything that come up are not predictable.
There's not a consistent artistic aesthetic to this movie. Like there are stylistic tics that appear a lot in certain sections and not in other sections. The musical numbers look completely different from the rest of the movie, which makes sense in a way. Like those should have a distinct aesthetic to them, but they feel like they just got dropped in from a completely different shoot that happened to have the same actors.
It feels like there were like three directors,
totally different production crew, totally different director. Yeah, exactly.
Except it all kind of looks bad. It's either too dark or the contrast is too high.
Except the musical numbers. The musical numbers look amazing.
They look great, and so that unit was doing a good job.
Especially that first one when the conflict between Banku and his bully escalates into their first schoolyard fight, and there is this insane fucking musical number.
Let's actually pause, because I think if our listeners want to get a sense of what this movie is, this scene is probably the highlight of the movie, at least for me. Like, I was not involved in the plot or the characters whatsoever, but when this song started playing, I got excited, and I actually started laughing out loud to myself. and dancing along.
Yeah.
I was not dancing, but I was definitely laughing.
Oh, I danced.
1920 London.
I was laying on the fucking couch.
Had some great musical numbers. This has some great musical numbers too.
Oh, but these make 1920 London's musical numbers look like shit.
Well, they're doing something completely different. 1920 London had musical numbers where they had a song, but what was you were seeing and visually was within the universe of the movie. And here you're seeing just like this crazy abstract music. It's a music video. It's like anything you would see on
Absolutely.
Kids dancing in the street. So Banku and his bully decide they're gonna like have a fight. We never really see the fight.
No.
What's weird is like this bully is not even really like a bully.
No, he laughs at Banku's name, and then Banku laughs at his name.
There's been no like serious aggression, and suddenly that's kind
It's
of my
his
problem.
first day of school, and they're gonna throw down.
There's not really a great impetus for any of the best scenes.
So like they just say, hey, they go out in the schoolyard, and then there's this just sensational.
Insane. I mean, they go through so many different costume changes.
They're wearing bandanas and baggy clothes.
Well,
and
I mean, schoolboy uniforms and football uniforms. Like, there's so much going on in that scene.
Yeah, they're kind of trying to cop the aesthetic of like American hip hop videos for most of the video,
these.
And then for a while they're in football uniforms, and there's some other costume change in there too, right?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's silly. It's sensational.
It's all about these kids being like over the top, larger than life, heroic, just titans doing battle. You know,
and ultimately it doesn't matter. Like the bully, like really doesn't figure into the plot at all.
Well, forward. And we get
he does, but in a really weird way. That's another weird thing is how this bully is actually a huge asshole to Banku, but kind of just like. We're
still a friend.
We and Banku are encouraged to repeatedly forgive this kid who just does really shitty things to Banku.
And I like that because like he's not a total bully. Like he's not like he's portrayed with 3 dimensions, which we never see with that kind of character.
We're encouraged to empathize with him.
Yeah,
that's nice.
It's nice. This movie is nice. This movie is directed toward children the age of Banku, I think.
Yeah. And
is that fair to say?
Children the age of Banku.
I would still say families. I feel like this meant
for a child at the age of Banku isn't going to go to the theater by himself.
The family stuff is kind of fucked up, though. Like, I don't feel like this is made for adult family members. There's some weird
it's made
shit
for
that
a family to watch together as a unit.
Sure.
Like Beethoven.
And they'll all come out of it better off with better character.
Like Beethoven. I mean, a family classic.
Beethoven has like 2/3 of the letters in it that you need to spell Bhoothnath, so.
Yeah. So eventually Banku meets Bhoothnath, which is the ghost in the house. Apparently, it used to be his house, and he's still there, and he doesn't really want anyone else to live there. And so after some build-up where you're not really sure what's going on and you don't really see the ghost, they eventually just kind of confront each other in the foyer, and Bhoothnath is like, hey, this is my house, and he screams at him, and Banku just screams back, and Banku basically just befriends the ghost by not being scared of the ghost, and the ghost just is like, okay, I guess we'll be friends then.
Which is the moment it becomes clear that this is not a horror movie.
Right.
That's kind of where I realized.
Or it's not even a children's horror movie. You know?
No, not at all.
That's the distinction. Like, you know, there are horror movies aimed at, like I would call, you know, Hocus Pocus. Is it really a horror movie? No, but it's horror. It's horror.
More so than this is.
Yeah. There's family-friendly approaches to horror. This really, other than the fact that he's a ghost, there's not really anything horrific about it other than the first 5 minutes. And then, like, I would argue 5 minutes later on in the movie that we can talk about later.
I kind of like that approach, actually. Like, I love breaking from genre conventions. My main problem with this movie is I didn't really care at all what happened after it, like, decided it wasn't a horror movie.
I guess this is a little off topic, but I'm just thinking about Bhoothnath. He's just really on my mind right now. I love that actor's performance. The actor who plays Bhoothnath, he was great.
He's like the Indian Al Pacino.
Yeah, he looks like a cross between Al Pacino and Michael McDonald.
But see, here's the other actor who I think should play Bhoothnath if there's an American remake. I was just thinking Neeson the whole time. Liam Neeson would be great in this fucking role.
You told me that last night, and I love Neeson. I don't see him in this.
Oh, I can see it so much.
All right.
Just that kind of quiet gravitas.
The quiet gravitas and the parental.
Neeson doesn't have quiet gravitas. Al Pacino does because he's still he has a lot of self-doubt.
No, Al Pacino would overdo it. He'd oversell it like he does fucking everything.
Whoa, you gotta get out of my house.
He doesn't do that anymore, though. He's so tired. He's so tired. Yeah, he doesn't do that.
Anyway. What's the example of where Pacino doesn't do Pacino anymore?
I mean, just like anything I've seen him in the last few years, he seems tired and worn out. Neeson is still full bore.
No. Have you seen a Neeson movie in the last decade?
Well, you've called my bluff. No.
Yeah, you got to get into the Taken cinematic universe.
I guess so.
The Neeson verse.
So. Oh man,
they're all connected.
I'll watch them.
It's a unified theory. Every single movie
if we can find time
Taken
in between
to
watching
the Commuter,
these fucking
same
terrible
character.
movies.
You can watch every Liam Neeson movie on Chris's Blu-ray shelf.
Yes.
Keep you busy for a while.
Give me the stack.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Anyway, Bhoothnath, great friend. And then there's just mischief for a good hour and a half.
Oh, just hijinks. Just crazy hijinks.
That's all it is.
Non-stop hijinks.
We see chalk figures on a blackboard in an elementary school classroom just becoming
coming to
animated.
life.
Brought to life. There's a subplot with the principal of the school steals everyone's lunches, a.k.a. Tiffin.
Also,
I Googled
all
Tiffin.
sandwiches. He's a sandwich connoisseur, which is why I said earlier, this movie it's about three things, and one of them is sandwiches.
Yeah, sandwiches.
This movie,
Lots of them.
all of them.
A lot of sandwiches.
And they're also gross-looking sandwiches. There's not a sandwich in this movie that
not appealing.
Eat.
Not appealing. Not a single Instagram-worthy sandwich in this film.
A beet sandwich. It was the whitest Wonder Bread. Just slate white and beets. And it was bleeding through the bread. And I just almost puked looking at it.
Yeah, the kids loved it.
No, they didn't love it because
it.
the principal got to it first.
Yeah.
That fucker.
But yeah, it's just hijinks. They just do stuff. They do anything.
It's just relationship building. It's the
not
genie.
It's not relationship
I mean, he's not a genie,
building.
but the ghost. It is relationship building. The relationship between Banku and Bhoothnath builds.
But it's not in the movie for the sake of character development.
Add much.
It's in the movie to make the audience laugh at the hijinks.
To pad it out. I would say a solid hour of this movie is padding.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long movie.
You could certainly cut a half hour of this movie and lose nothing.
It's over a 2-hour movie.
It's 2 hours and 9 minutes.
And it is not, it does not need to be that long.
No.
Let me tell you what I liked about it, though.
Please.
One thing I thought was very interesting was we've all seen horror movies. I just saw Poltergeist for the first time, actually, this week. We've all seen these movies where there's a child talking to a ghost or a demon, and it's always fucking terrifying because you never see the ghost or the demon. So I like how this was kind of the same story, but told from the inverse point of view, where the mom's kind of upset, but we don't see much of her, and the kid's just spending all his free time talking to this guy who isn't there.
I like that too.
But we see it from his point of view.
I've never seen that before in a movie.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating.
Right. It's not hard to imagine a straight horror version of the same story where you just don't get to see Bhoothnath any more than the normal people do.
Well, I want to say I have grown up on movies with subtitles. I'm always very conscious of whether or not the subtitles actually convey what is happening on screen. This movie has the worst subtitling I think you've ever seen.
Incredible.
This is the worst example I can think of a movie where whoever did the subtitles did not give a fuck about conveying the story.
Well, maybe they did, but they didn't have a very good grasp of the English language.
Maybe, but it was insane. I should not be able to tell what is happening on screen better from my interpretation of it than what the subtitle I'm getting.
But I mean, the best examples of this are the terrible translations of the lyrics in the musical numbers, because you're not entirely sure what the message of those numbers is supposed to be necessarily. And I made a note of a couple of my favorite ones. Two of them are, those who exhibits the attitude will get a big time from us.
Yes, I remember that.
And even more just inscrutable.
Lay it on me, babe.
He can also ploy and can also jostle an elephant. What?
I don't know. It seems
Ploy is not a verb.
I gave up on
Number
writing
one.
notes because I was like, this makes no sense. Like, I can understand from what is happening visually how these characters feel. And the text made me more... Like, I thought for a minute that I was watching a different movie than I thought I was watching.
And I mean, I can't criticize that too much because clearly it's someone who doesn't have a great grasp of the English language. It's not necessarily like an artistic failure, but still
it's
just
not. We don't
really...
even know. I mean, it's kind of seems like low hanging fruit to me. Like you can make fun of a poor translation error. We don't even know who's writing the translation.
Yeah, but
it's almost certainly not the
movie with
filmmakers.
A decent budget,
No.
and from a decent
Yeah, and that's
production,
why
can
I'm
have
saying...
somebody can hire somebody to like do a decent translation. And generally, I'm always suspect of translations, even on Criterion Collection movies. I still wonder, am I getting the full intent of the line? This was so off the rails that I just thought, I've not seen this movie. I've not seen it the way it was intended to be seen.
Maybe it is a straight horror movie.
It could be.
I don't know. I feel like we know enough about it from what you can see on the screen, apart from the subtitles, to know
The broad strokes, at least, if not the subtext.
There's nothing going on in this film aside from it trying to be a Bollywood smash hit with like great songs.
It's trying to be a crowd pleaser, like from start to finish.
Oh, absolutely.
There's just all these
It's like a low rent Danny Boyle movie.
And I mean, this brings up the issue to me. You know, I'm tired of trying to ask for subtext out of a movie that isn't going for that. Like, not every movie has to have subtext. You know, we're trying to wring fucking lemonade out of an orange
I
or
think the
whatever.
reason-
You know, it's a family film.
Yeah, well, I don't think we want subtext.
It's the same
for
thing. I mean, we keep comparing it to
didn't know that
Beethoven.
going
It's like
in, though.
expecting subtext out of Beethoven.
I don't know if we're talking about subtext or what, or I don't know what, you know, Beethoven. I don't know if Beethoven's a good movie or not. But, like, I don't think we need subtext for its own sake or anything, but, you know, we need something to make the movie interesting, and really just hours of hijinks isn't that interesting. And this movie has a lot of padding. It starts to get interesting a little later on when you start to bring some like character lessons, and you start to the relationship between Banku and Bhoothnath becomes a little more interesting. But it's just trying to please the crowd. It's like here's a song and dance, here's some funny classroom jokes, here's some this, and it goes on for way longer than it should.
I have to say,
Sure.
between Banku and Bhoothnath, as the film went on, I felt creepy about their relationship.
You thought it was a little "Call Me by Your Name."
Yeah, exactly. I would not have said that. I would not have thought that, but it did feel like there was something kind of sensual going on, not between the characters, but the way it would, the way
there's
way
no
it was
way.
written, like the lines that they deliver. I was like, this movie is clearly not going to go there, but like this feels like perverse somehow. I mean, like there are songs where like Bhoothnath talks about how he like can't live without Banku.
Mr. Banku.
There's not a lot here. There's a few highlights. Like one highlight is when Bhoothnath almost accidentally kills Banku.
Yeah.
He scares him down to falling down the stairs, and he has to go to the hospital. And then he's almost in a coma, unconscious. And there's a great moment where Banku wakes up, and they're like, "Oh, we're so glad you woke up." And Bhoothnath is in the hospital because he has no geographic constraints on his ghostliness. And he's in the he's in the hospital room, like. And there's a moment where they're like, "What happened?" And Bhoothnath is like terrified that he's gonna get fingered for the crime. And there's like this dramatic music, and he's like looking in horror. And Banku's like, "I was just playing and I fell." And Bhoothnath is like so relieved, as if there could be any consequences
To him as a ghost.
Right.
Yeah, I disagree with this idea, though. There's not a lot there, but that may be because of the very specific, I guess I'm going to describe it as an emotional experience I had with this movie, because number one, going into it, I was dreading this whole experience. I was like, this sounds shitty. It sounds overlong. I was not feeling it, and the first maybe 10, even 20 minutes of the movie did nothing to assuage my fears in that department. But then the fucking schoolyard fight music video comes in, and I'm like, what are we doing
Just
here?
lifted your spirits.
This is kind of awesome. And as it went along, again, that emotional relationship between those two characters and the performances that they both gave, I got really invested. And I enjoyed this way more than I expected to. I will agree, though, that there's easily a half hour you can cut.
Oh, one quick note. That hospital scene, so much blood. Like, it's a family film, and then he falls down the stairs and he cuts his head, and then there's just like, it's like you're watching ER. His whole face is just covered with blood when they take him into the hospital.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, good for them for putting that in their family movie.
Yeah.
Well, is it time?
Review it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
All right. Steven, would you view it, cue it, or screw it?
Cue it. If you email me privately, I will tell you the moments I think you should watch. It's a very surprising film. I felt kind of put off by it initially, but I got on his wavelength, and I think it's actually kind of fantastic. Like, watch it if you want to see a weird fucking Indian movie. That's my review.
Excellent.
Patrick.
I'm going to say view it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, not a strong view it necessarily, but you've heard us talk about it. It's not a horror movie, but if you are looking for a multicultural experience for your family, a good family movie that gives the kids some global perspective, you could do a lot worse than Bhoothnath.
You could.
Chris, what did you think? View it, cue it, or screw it, fuck it, damn it.
I hate to say it. I gotta screw it.
Oh!
What the fuck?
Yeah,
This has been another shocking episode.
I had no idea that was possible.
I have to screw it. Listen, it's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of positivity. I don't have any malice towards this film or any of the people who made it. It's great. At the end of the day, though, it's just not a fun way to spend your time.
Wow.
It's
Really?
Yeah, it's so much of the joy that I did get from this movie. I felt like I was laughing at its expense, laughing at the cultural differences, laughing at the music videos for being strange and bizarre to my American sensibilities. And I'm not going to recommend a movie just based on that. So, again, no malice. It's great and great for everyone who enjoys this. And I think it was a hit in India. I mean, it spawned a sequel at least.
It was very successful.
Chris, I think you might have actually influenced my opinion. I think I'd give it a screw it. I think I'm done, actually, with this movie. Like, I don't care about the sequel. I did not enjoy watching this film. I wanted to give it a second chance, but fuck it.
Fuck it. All right. I persuaded him.
I am very drunk, but also I think Chris is actually right. Like, I don't like this movie. I didn't have fun with it.
You are easily influenced.
Not easily. No, I don't normally take other people's opinions to heart, but I think I'm on Chris's wavelength. Like, I really don't think... I had some fun with this movie, don't get me wrong. That schoolyard dance scene, like, I will listen to that song until I die.
Right. And speaking of which, we should listen to that on our way to the spoiler room.
We're going to listen to that right now. We're going to make a quick little trip down to the spoiler room, and we're going to play, instead of our beautiful theme, which, by the way, Steven wrote that theme, we're going to play the only piece of music that's better, the music video crazy theme from the schoolyard fight / rally / dance competition.
I wish I could have written it myself.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So go watch Bhoothnath with your family and your little kids if you want, or come on down to the spoiler room.
You should. It's a kid's film. It's made for 5-year-olds.
Kids film or not, we're gonna spoil the shit out of it in a few seconds. So stick with us if you're interested in that. Welcome back to Every Horror Movie on Netflix. We're in the spoiler room now, ready to spoil all the creepy twists and turns.
Everything.
Of Bhoothnath. And guys, on our break, I found out some news. I guess we've been disrespecting a great legendary Indian film actor. Bhoothnath is actually played by, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, he's famous.
Amitabh Amitabh Bachchan.
What has he been in?
I don't want to. I butchered it, but I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's been in over 190 Indian films.
Holy shit.
Spanning 50 years.
He's like the Christopher Lee of Indian film.
Yeah, and Francois Truffaut called him a one-man industry for his importance to the Indian
I just want to register,
movie scene.
I did not disrespect this man at all.
He was great.
I loved his performance.
We were talking shit about his fingernails. We were talking...
Oh, but that was...
Shitty movie,
the
but he
character.
was fantastic.
That's all costuming and makeup.
I'm sorry I called him
that
Al
was
Pacino
intentional.
meets Michael McDonald.
I mean, I think that's still a good way to summon up a visual of him for the
A
listeners.
visual of him, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, apologies.
He's infinitely more talented than either of those men combined,
Anyway,
in my opinion.
and he was also in Bhoothnath 2. Bhoothnath Returns.
Bhoothnath
There
Returns.
was-
Which
sequel,
apparently was a political comedy film in which Bhoothnath runs, he wins an election. And what? Yeah. So,
No!
Yeah, so...
That sounds amazing.
Maybe that'll be on Netflix and we can check that out someday.
I hope so. Hopefully there's 5 minutes of horror shit at the beginning of that so we can watch it at some
All right.
point.
Well, funny you say that. We've been talking about how only the first 5 minutes of this movie is horror. I would argue there's another 5 minutes of horror.
Oh.
Where?
Late in the movie, there is, I think, about 5 minutes of straight horror.
It's emotional
where
horror.
There's a dispute, like...
Flashback,
After
right?
everyone knows and the mom finds out about Bhoothnath and everything like that, I forget how it comes up, but Bhoothnath says in a very intimidating way to Banku, your family will never be allowed to leave this house.
Yeah.
Because he's attached to them and he wants them to stay with him forever. And he says that and it's kind of menacing. And then like the next scene, they're like sitting in the dark talking to someone who can't see Bhoothnath and they look over and there's like a rocking chair moving by itself. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there's now a ghost who's like kind of oppressing them a little bit. But then it lasts like one scene and then we're back to the hijinks.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the emotional horror that we get into when we find out how Bhoothnath died and became Bhoothnath in the first place.
God, it's-
because that's a little harrowing.
It's
Well, this
heavy.
movie goes like to pure melodrama for the last 30 minutes or so.
Yeah. It does. It's
total soap.
It's total soap.
Very soap,
The
yes.
story, in a nutshell, the story is Bhoothnath lived in he lived in this mansion with his wife when he was alive, when he was a normal guy, and his name wasn't Bhoothnath. His name was like Nath, and he's a ghost. of Nath.
Kailash Nath.
He's
I
a
think
ghost
was his
of
name.
Nath, so his name is Bhoothnath, which means ghost Nath. Anyway, so his son went off to America to study and like never came back.
I didn't understand like why his son betrayed him.
He
think
was just an
got-
asshole.
Well, I think that speaks to maybe something the movie isn't necessarily trying to say, but an attitude that the movie or the filmmakers have about America.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of interesting because America keeps coming up a little bit, and it seems to be like a place where your people go off to and get corrupted.
I think you're actually right, but I was very disturbed that like that was the impetus for him being left alone, is that like his son was going to take his wife to America and leave him behind, and there seemed to be no motivation whatsoever. And that was the crux of the whole.
Well, he goes off and he becomes like a finance guy, and I guess he just forgets about caring for his parents, and he doesn't even call. They wait by the phone. You know, he's just a bad son. He's got his, and he doesn't honor his family anymore.
Oh, that scene where Kailash or Bhoothnath, before he became a ghost, is sitting like literally holding an old-fashioned like telephone in his lap, waiting for his son to call, and he and his wife are just like, oh, did he probably forgot. No, he never forgets. That affected me. I was like,
that's sad.
oh,
Yeah, it
that's
was pretty kind of
yeah, that's
harrowing.
And so Bhoothnath's wife, the son's mother, eventually dies. You know, like it's kind of implied she dies of like a broken heart, sort of. Like she dies, and whether or not the son was the cause of the death, you know,
We don't know.
his absence exacerbated the situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when the son finally comes home, Bhoothnath and him hates him, and he's like, I can't forgive you. And
he comes home with a kid.
he comes home with a kid and his wife.
Bhoothnath has a grandchild who
He's
he's
got like
never seen,
like a trophy wife,
who's a
and
huge bitch.
yeah. And they're like, you know
Whoa.
what? We're selling.
She is. She's a huge asshole.
I agree, but
Yeah, she's definitely
she's like
antagonistic.
whatever he is.
And then he's like, we're gonna sell this house. And he's like, no, I'm still living here. This is our house. This is our mother's house. Remember, mother brought you home from the hospital and sat you in that chair. And he's like, I don't care. I'm a finance bro. We got a good deal on this house. So great. the heartbreaking scene. Bhoothnath's family leaves him alone in the house, and he's going to chase after him in the car. And I think why is he chasing after him? Is he gonna...
Wait, actually, I'm not sure we're thinking about the same scene.
I'm talking about the scene where Bhoothnath dies.
Oh, chasing a car?
Because they're leaving in the taxi, and Bhoothnath is like, I think he has a change of heart, like he wants to tell his son he loves him or something like that.
No, he steals his grandson. He like grabs his grandson and says, I forget. There's a very dramatic line.
That's a big dispute. There's a big dispute where that's before the family leaves. But then Bhoothnath's next of kin leave the mansion and get in the car, and Bhoothnath's like angry. But I think maybe the dramatic turn is he wants to go back out to the car, not necessarily to argue, but to reach out in some way. And he's rushing down the stairs, and he trips, and he falls just like Banku fell down the stairs, exactly like Banku fell down the stairs.
But it's after his grandson has been ripped from his arms,
right? After his grandson's been ripped from his arms
by this asshole.
He's alone in the house.
His son's
right
asshole
now.
Wife.
Yeah, he's alone in the house. Everyone else is in the car. They're leaving for good to go back to America. Bhoothnath falls down the stairs, splits his dome open on the steps.
And the way that sequence is shot and edited is amazing. There are so many different shots of the fall down the steps, and there's so much slow-mo, and it's so over the top, and it's great.
Then he gets up and goes outside to stop the taxi, and he's like, hey, come back. And they don't even look back. They just drive away. And Bhoothnath goes back into the house in defeat and witnesses his own dead body laying on the floor at the bottom of the
It was just the
stairs.
ghost that ran out to the taxi. It's really good.
That's great. Give me more of that.
Honestly.
Give me more of that and less of everything else.
I don't see that kind of like soapy melodrama that often, and I think, and I mean, I would argue that it's actually soapy melodrama done pretty much as well as you can do that shit. It's
I
like
haven't seen it
For
done.
20% of the movie,
It's
though, like
basically
most of it is bullshit.
The peak
but, like,
of that form, and I was really into it actually.
I haven't seen the scene that good and melodramatic since Shivangi fingered Jay at the trial for like molesting her or whatever it was.
You used fingered in that usage a couple times
That's
this episode.
exactly
now.
what's going on. People are giving people the blame.
Shivangi. I forgot about Shivangi.
Yeah. So eventually they have to just put Bhoothnath's soul to rest. And the whole family comes, it's very touching. It goes on forever, but it's touching. The son comes back.
It requires the prodigal son to come back and not be a dick anymore.
The father comes back off the cruise ship, where how much work he's doing on this cruise ship is up for debate.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always like on the edge, like looking photographic.
Like with some like whatever the cruise equivalent of flight attendants is and stuff.
Yeah.
He's got his shirt like unbuttoned down to his navel.
Yeah. And there's also probably the most sober musical number in this whole movie happens as they're conducting this ritual to turn Bhoothnath into a star angel and to sort of free him from his connection to the earthly plane.
Yeah.
And there's this very, very literal kind of musical number where they're singing, and it's much more grounded than all the other musical numbers. And Vijay, who's the prodigal son who's been kind of a dick this whole time, and who this ritual requires, basically his participation, comes back, and
everyone
it's
comes
pretty
together
moving.
in the end.
Yeah, I would say the musical numbers kind of go downhill as things go along. Like, we start really strong with that schoolyard number that we've talked about so much, and it takes a dip from there. It never really matches that peak of insanity again.
Well, also they seem less insane just because you acclimate to them over the 2 hours.
Could be. There is one where Bhoothnath does a rap, which we have not talked about.
I love that one. That's
that was
my favorite.
amazing.
Scene.
He's
The
got
rap
like
is ridiculous and amazing.
he's got like these flapper girls with him on like a pier.
Yeah.
Yes, who was who wrote A New Drug?
Huey Lewis. I want a new drug.
Yeah, it was like that
want
kind
a
of
new
style
drug.
of like 80s music video. Like, for no reason. Like, there's not in the story at all. Like, there was nothing narratively that allowed these characters to be alone to sing a song.
And it's like it never happened when you come back from it. Like, you have those kids who apparently they have a fight, but we never even see the fight or hear anything about the fight. There's just a musical number. Mm-hmm. Hey, whatever. Mm-hmm. Crowd pleasing. Please Patrick.
Yeah.
It pleased me. I loved it. Like the musical
feel
numbers
like-
were on point, but like more often than not, they didn't move the story forward. There were great scenes, but they served no purpose.
I feel like we're headed for Steven revising his rating more time before the end of this episode.
I would say actually, the more we go on, I would say view it.
Oh, yes! I knew it. I saw that coming.
Bullshit.
But I would give you like I would create a timeline. Like, here are the scenes you should view.
Yeah, that's
honestly,
not
there was a lot in this movie that I loved.
All right, so this is relevant because we recently updated our website where you can now go and see a list with like a little nice color-coded thing that Chris put together where you can see how we rated every episode. You can rate it by the highest. You can rank it by the highest rated movies or lowest rated. But Steven, you have to have a final view it, cue it, or screw it before the end of the episode so you can have a green, yellow, or red light on the list.
And actually, I will say, when I give my initial rating, there was some trepidation. I would say, yeah, I'm going to fall back and I cue it. I think I was right initially.
Okay.
But I think like it's a cue it with
Safe.
prejudice.
That's safe.
There are scenes you should watch in this movie because I've never seen anything quite like them. But I would say as a film, not a view it.
One last thing I didn't really like. They finally free Bhoothnath's
Yeah, we should get into that.
soul.
Yeah.
And Bhoothnath, the ghost, dissolves into pixie dust. And Banku is like, Bhoothnath, bring him back.
Yeah.
And he appears as like a little,
it's
like a
very sad.
Yoda in the sky.
Well,
I was sad
he
thinking
goes
he'd be
out.
gone.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. He goes up to the rooftop terrace and he's looking out at the stars where all the spirits go, and he's like screaming and crying for Bhoothnath. And it's kind of like E.T., where he met this friend.
Yeah.
He learned a lot of lessons from him about like citizenship because his dad was gone, so he learned about like how to forgive, how to not be an asshole, all the stuff parents are supposed to teach their kids. And then at the end, Bhoothnath has to go away, so he goes away. And I think I might have preferred, just from my own, being heartbroken at E.T. as a kid, if Bhoothnath had just gone away and left the kid heartbroken, yet better for the experience.
Yeah, but no, we have to set up the sequel.
Bhoothnath comes back, and he's like in the yard, like the next scene, and he's like, I'm back, but don't tell anybody. And then he tells us, he points at the camera, don't tell anybody. So I guess we fucked that part up.
Because apparently the secret is if Banku just calls Bhoothnath's name, Bhoothnath comes back, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Except Banku called Bhoothnath's name on the roof in that first scene that's sort of like the sad ending. It's that Nightmare on Elm Street thing again.
Yeah.
Like there's sort of the happy ending that feels very tacked on.
That's a great comparison, actually.
It's tacked on. Right. And it betrays the whole Bhoothnath's whole story, which is he's a ghost and his soul needs to be put to rest.
Yeah.
You're not at rest if you're still fucking with the principal's food.
He doesn't seem to want to get rest, though. He seems like he wants a friend.
And actually,
He wants to stay alive.
But what comes next should be better than that.
I should clarify because I just made it sound like the end of A Nightmare on Elm Street is happy, but the comparison for anyone who might not understand, you guys get what I'm saying, but just the comparison is that the ending of A Nightmare on Elm Street feels very tacked on to create a setup for a sequel.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's like a happy ending with a tacked on downer part, and this is a downer ending with a tacked on happy part.
Correct.
And neither are acceptable.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yes. Beautiful.
And there was a sequel that we hopefully will not have to review.
Yeah,
because I don't give a fuck.
The Manchurian Candidate.
Pretty much. You can look up the Wikipedia page for that if you want. It was very interesting.
Bhoothnath returns.
They tried to get like a tax credit because they thought it was a movie that would actually teach audiences about like civics and how to vote and stuff like that.
Bhoothnath returns. Hopefully Michelle Pfeiffer isn't in a cat suit.
Oh God.
Oh God. We can only hope.
So what are we watching next, Chris?
I don't know if anybody has any idea.
I got it. We'll figure it out. All right. Next time, get this. We are watching Bleed. Bleed, but the L is an upside down cross.
Oh my
Wait, the
God.
T or the L?
What?
Bleed. Batide.
Wait, can I see?
Batide.
That's what
sounds
we're watching.
so fucking shitty.
Oh, there's a girl in a tub, in a clawfoot tub, nude.
Oh.
Yeah, I've not heard of this. I follow horror pretty closely, and I think I'm in for a real surprise.
Well, I'm not going to read the plot synopsis because I don't do that. But if you want to find out what it's about...
You know what? I have a bad attitude about this. That title sounds shitty, but you know what? Like every other movie that I watch for this cast, I'm going to go into it with love. I'm going to go into it with an open mind.
Same. I'm learning to do that. I really do want to like these movies.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
I hope you're looking forward to it, and I hope you join us in 2 weeks when we talk about Bleed. Until then, you can catch us online as always. We're on most of the social media outlets. You can email us. You can send us fan mail. We can read your fan mail on the air. We can say, hey, so-and-so wants to know what we think about this. Here's what we think. It's up to you.
What if they troll us?
You might get trolled back. We can be vicious. But anyway, for every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris. That's all we got.
I'm Patrick. Hi, Chris.
I'm Steven. Hi, Patrick and Chris.
Goodbye, Patrick and Chris and Steve.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Everybody.
Goodbye, Steve. Goodbye, Moon. Goodbye, Bhoothnath.